Go. Hey, people of the internet, and welcome back to another episode of the Dog Trio podcast. I am your host, Mr. Espinoza X.
Mr. Gabe Kai Color once again.
And hello there.
And today we are going to be talking about a game series that has been quite in limbo for quite some time now. And, that's, pretty reasonable since, other game series like Mega Man and Kid Icarus has been in limbo. But thanks to a certain game series called Super Smash Brothers with Brawl introducing back Pit from Kid Icarus, they released Kid Icarus Uprising for the 3DS. And after that, in Super Smash Bros. 4, they brought back Mega Man, who's been quite in crucifixion mode with Capcom. But, ever since then, Capcom released 2 legacy collections for Mega Man, which is for the Classic series and the X series, and eventually a brand new game, which is Mega Man 11, a new entry to the Classic series. But now, since Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is coming out in December, they introduced 2 characters in this game series that we're going to talk about today. And I'm, of course, talking about this horror/platformer action-adventure game known as Castlevania, developed by Capcom. Whew.
Wait, developed by Capcom? Man. Don't you mean Konami?
Oh, Konami. Sorry. Anyway.
No worries.
Konami. Developed by Konami, pretty much. And man, Castlevania has always been one of my favorite video game series of all time. Sure, their original games for the NES have been, had a reputation for being some of the hardest games ever. And, of course, other games have experimented on other, genres, having elements of RPG or pretty much, just other ones. But yeah, but I want to know from you guys, what do you think? Like, have you grew up with Castlevania and pretty much, I'll just leave it to you guys. Go ahead, Ken. Go ahead. I'll leave off.
You go first.
We didn't even bring up that he was a special guest.
I did. Did nobody
hear
me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Figure out when it's my turn to talk. Anyway, yeah, I'll be honest. Castlevania is not really a series I grew up on. I don't really have much of a backstory on it, honestly. I didn't even really get into the series until I was like 18, and I think I saw a Let's Play of Super Castlevania 4, and then I tried it out on an emulator. I got my ass kicked harder than any Mega Man game could probably have given me the thrashing of, but I got adjusted to it. It felt great. And then I immediately went over to the other classic Castlevania games, and then I got my ass kicked even more.
What a horrible night to have a curse.
for real. But anyway, Ghostman, you?
Castlevania has actually been one of those series that it's more recent, actually. I didn't really get into the Castlevania series until 2015, actually. I saw, like, a game explained dude play Super Castlevania 4, and I'm like, oh, this series looks interesting. I did hear about the series before, but I just never got into it. And then one of the first Castlevania games I played on, so a bunch of my Castlevania experience is mostly from the emulators I played it from. But Area of Sorrow was the first game I actually played, and that was quite an experience because it was interesting because like I had to get used to like a sword wielder because I played like another game before it. I played like I think Super Castlevania 4, and I had to get used to like one like. It's so weird when you go from a person who uses a whip to a person who uses a sword. It's really interesting, but at first the games really kicked my butt. I remember my first save file when I died. I literally got a game over and I lost all my progress, and I'm like, oh crap, I forgot to save. And yeah, from then I've played like mostly all the Castlevania games. Holy crap, they're pretty hard.
All right. And you, Mr. Game Guy?
I literally have zero knowledge so forth when it comes down to this franchise, outside of a couple reviews I've seen on YouTube, and the fact that Simon and Richard are now playable in Ultimate. Which, may I add though, what Castlevania, Kid Icarus, and Mega Man all have in common, aside from being stuck in limbo until being announced in Smash, is that they were all from Captain N, nonetheless. I will never.
So true. But
coincidentally, aside from being stuck in limbo, they were also on that kind of good, kind of bad TV show.
Yeah, I remember Captain N so much. Yeah, dude. What a memory. But my experience with the Castlevania series, again, I didn't get into the series until I've played my first game, which was, prepare to laugh, my first game of Castlevania I've played was Castlevania 64. Yeah.
Oh, that's not the worst. That's not the worst you could go for.
You mean the...
I think.
Oh boy. Yeah, that game.
Yeah, that game. I mean, when I was a kid, I was going through Blockbuster, and then that's when I came across just this really cool cover of some dude like behind the castle, and then like right there, the title, just Castlevania. It literally just kind of struck my mind. And I'm like, I gotta try out this game. As a kid, I did really like it and everything, but as I played it as an adult, that's when it was a whole different story. I didn't play the other Castlevania games until my cousin introduced me to Symphony of the Night when I was probably still in middle school and stuff. And, you know, I was really mind blown. Like, wow, why wasn't I introduced to this game when, back in the PlayStation 1 days, pretty much. And then that's when I had my experience with the other classic series, when I discovered emulators. And of course, when I saw the AVGN's review of the games, pretty much. And, ever since then, Castlevania has been, one of my favorite video games, that franchises that I wish I was introduced very early on and stuff. And, till this day, I still love Super Castlevania 4. I literally think it's the best in the series, in my opinion, even though a lot of people would prefer Symphony of the Night and stuff. But I'll, explain more about it when we get to those games, pretty much. So pretty much what we want to talk about is pretty much the history of Castlevania, pretty much talking about the games. Now, in order to not, make this podcast, more lengthy than, what pretty much the introductions already is, we're going to briefly just talk about the pretty much the games that, are canon, pretty much, talk about pretty much the games that are more lean on towards the timeline and stuff. And then after that,
canon,
for the games that aren't canon, we'll talk about it briefly and stuff. If you guys want to add in, I'm open to do that as well.
I know some.
Yeah, we'll briefly talk about the spin-offs and stuff like that. And then after that, kind of like explain, the future of Castlevania, and pretty much, if you guys want, we could talk about, the timeline, pretty much. I know that's gonna be a little hard one, but hey, we'll try. But yeah.
At this point, I'll basically just be the cameraman.
Right. But Ken, you want to add on, or you want to talk about, the history? Want to start us off?
I'm gonna be honest. I don't really know a whole lot about Castlevania. It's one of those series that I'm still trying to figure out little by little. I'm not the person to come to for that.
Alrighty then. So I'll just go ahead and talk about. I'll just go ahead and do it anyway. But anyway, it was May 1st. We didn't truly, in North America, we didn't truly get, Castlevania until I believe it was May 1st of 1980. 1987. Pretty much, before then in 1986 is when Castlevania wasn't known as Castlevania. It was pretty much known as just Haunted Castle and everything. It was released on the original Nintendo Famicom in Japan and stuff. And then
Boo,
Europe got
Haunted
it.
House.
Yeah, and then and then for Europe they got in the this little like computer type system known as the Sony MSX. Pretty much notably known for the games for the original Metal Gear games, pretty much. So yeah, so the creator of the games, it was sorry, I'm trying to remember his name. Ghostman, do you know the name of the creator? Oh, damn it.
It's on the tip of my tongue. I actually do know who the creator's name is.
I should have freaking. Oh man, I should have researched this. I should have known his name before I started. But hold on, let me do a little quick Google search here.
I got it.
You got it?
The creator of the Castlevania game is Koji Igarashi. Igarashi.
Yeah, there he goes. Koji Igarashi. Yeah, he pretty much pitched the idea to Konami of making something that, kind of was a brand new thing at the time. Is pretty much horror. Pretty much taking inspiration from the original Universal monsters like Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Wolfman and stuff. And pretty much, again, May 1st, 1987 is when we truly got. It was when it truly, skyrocketed. And it was, of course, the first Castlevania game, just simply known as Castlevania for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Now, I didn't play this game. Well, pretty much, here's a little breakdown. Pretty much the story of Castlevania is that pretty much Dracula resurrects himself for every 100 years. So it's pretty much up to this family of vampire killers known as the Belmonts, who pretty much, the one chosen Belmont in the family is, equipped with a whip known as the Vampire Killer, pretty much very strong to pretty much slay vampires and other demons as well and stuff. So in this game, the main Belmont in this game is known as Simon Belmont and stuff. So, originally the plot was that his wife got kidnapped by Dracula, and pretty much it was up to him to pretty much rescue her. And, I didn't play the first Castlevania game until probably 2010. Pretty much when I figured out, I could use the original Nintendo Entertainment System emulator, pretty much. And from what I've heard, that a lot of people say that it's literally one of the hardest games in that system. I would have to agree, it is one of the hardest ever. But I briefly got through the first level, but that's until the levels progressed. That's when it just started getting hard and stuff. But it was a pretty cool game, and I actually really did enjoy playing the games. So yeah. But Ken, you want to add in what's your experience on the original Castlevania?
I came to own the NES carts, but at the time I had a hard time getting the console to work because I had it for a long time. But that said, my exposure to Castlevania 1 the first time through was sometime after I finished, I want to say Castlevania 4. I finished Castlevania 4, Rondo of Blood, and probably something in the night. I don't remember. But anyway, I remember playing Castlevania 1 on the 3DS of all consoles. And it was an experience. It was an experience, to say the least. I certainly wasn't used to how stiff the controls were, because it's one of those games where you can totally feel like the weight of the character, and sometimes in the worst way fucking possible. Like when you jump one way, you're going that way, like regardless. And I definitely feel like it's got some of the worst elements of first game syndrome, where I was trying to play it recently just for the sake of like seeing where my opinions stand on it. And oh my god, the enemy placement is fucking terrible.
Hey, they want it to be a hard game after all.
It is.
I feel as optimized as say 3, for instance, where I felt like most of the deaths in that game were my fault at least. One, just I feel like I'm constantly at odds of being put in disadvantages that, you know, unless I had the correct sub-weapon, it's like my weapon isn't enough to, like, get through that mess. And it's like, when I'm starting to see that stuff as early as the 3rd level, there's something wrong. Very, very wrong. I mean, I've beaten it before, but it's not really a game I plan to revisit.
Yeah, I'm on the same boat as you.
I need to put my thoughts into this because, man, I have a hard history with the first game.
Go ahead, Ken. Go ahead.
Was Ken going to say anything? Or
no, Ken. I said Ken.
Oh, yeah, Ken, go ahead.
Well, I already lost my train of thought.
Oh, it's fine. Alrighty then. But yeah, pretty much the game, the reason why it's hard is that a lot of NES games have this tendency of if you get hit by an enemy, you get bounced back like 2 feet away pretty much. And then like when you're standing on the platform, you get hit by an enemy, which, you know, mostly the Medusa heads. You kind of just like right there, get hit, you stand back, you fall in the pit. That's pretty much what the game pretty much is. Most of the time you would die. But not only that, some of the bosses in the game were just pretty much really hard. But I mean, I remember but there's also one thing I also forgot to mention. There's these sub weapons that would help you out. Pretty much, there's holy water, the cross, and axes, pretty much. And sometimes some of these enemies don't do well with, you know, whatever sub weapon you have. I believe the bat boss in the first one, I believe it's I think the cross or was it the dagger? I don't remember.
It was a cross.
It was a cross? Okay, yeah. The cross is pretty much that is what's better to use against this bat boss. But yeah. But
cross is in level 1.
What happened?
I thought there weren't any crosses in level 1.
There isn't, or there is?
There isn't.
Oh, there isn't? Oh.
I think you get the cross later on in the game. You don't get it first level.
Oh, you know? Oh. Well.
I think you get the dagger, but not the cross.
Oh, then I guess, yeah. I guess the dagger helps too, I guess. But anyway, but yeah, that's pretty much, you know, the whole gameplay of Castlevania. Pretty much, you know, again, like I mentioned, the whip. And, you know, this is a pretty much unique thing because, you know, out of the times, you know, a lot of these platformers, you step on an enemy and they die, or you use a sword like in Legend of Zelda. But this character uses a whip and stuff, and it was actually pretty cool, you know. But yeah. But anyway, Ghostman, you want to add in? What do you think about the first Castlevania?
I hate the game. I hate it. I hate oh boy, do I have a lot of history with this game.
Okay.
It was actually one of the first games I tried out because it was really easy to emulate. Oh boy, the game was, how do I compare it to? To me, it's like the first Mega Man game for some reason. It's like Ken was saying, first game syndrome. It literally feels like that. Kind of feels like Mega Man 1 in that situation. I remember the stupid bat placements. The Medusa heads always killing me off the floor whenever I try to hit them. And can we just say, I hate the final boss. I actually hate the final boss of the game. Like, oh my gosh, it's so stupid. Like,
water on a damn thing.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
oh, well, for the second form, yeah, but for the first form, oh boy.
You just pick a rhythm when to jump, and then you just stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you gotta stay with that rhythm. At first, it might be really hard, but oof. Yeah, it's definitely one of the hardest Castlevania games I've definitely ever played, but I don't think it's the hardest, per se. I don't think it's the hardest.
Yeah, there's other ones that take the cake, but yeah, I know what you mean.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that one.
Yeah, but Mr. Game Guy, you want to add in?
Oh, for Castlevania 1?
Yeah.
Well, again, the best knowledge I really have on this franchise right now is just various different Let's Plays and reviews I've seen of it. But as far as I'm aware from Castlevania 1, I have heard, though, that it is incredibly notorious for its difficulty. And I'm not exactly sure, because I do remember a long time ago I did play it once on an emulator. I sucked. Just for clarification, I sucked. But as far as I'm aware, I do not have too much input, though, aside from just the reviews and Let's Plays I've seen of it. As far as I'm aware, though, I mean, aside from me sucking at the beginning, though, it does seem to be pretty hard, though, just due to the fact that, well, it was a game from the 80s. That's when video games were, relatively getting a bit more... they were becoming more common, a bit more advanced from Atari-style games and arcade games that were very arcade-like. So it definitely has a lot of outdated flaws behind it. And in my opinion, though, I think it's definitely one of the many games that in the beginning of a series or franchise that really shows how it's evolved from the beginning of it. So nothing too much to say about the game, though, but I do think it is an interesting analysis, though, just looking at it from the beginning and looking at its later sequels or games later on that adapt that similar game style, and how they improved from it.
Yeah.
So that's all I gotta
really
say.
Can't give the first Okay, I really can't say that. I don't think Castlevania 1's a bad game. I just feel like the word is dated. It's more of a dated game than anything. I think at the time it was probably fine, but gosh dang, 8-year-old kids have to deal with this, and that's funny.
Hey, turn them into frickin' tigers.
I think for a first game, it's passable. It's the first game in the series, so I really don't have a lot to say because Castlevania wasn't really established at the time, so I think for all its flaws it's got, I think it's a pass.
Yeah, but despite being a hard game, it did had a lot of success. And
I think it was like,
and pretty much, yeah, the final boss is Count Dracula and everything, and yeah, he's pretty hard. But in his second form, if you throw holy water in it, you'll easily beat him and stuff like that. And might also add as well that with every game when you replenish your health, it's hearts always. But this game ignores that. Pretty much hearts are used skill points for when you use your sub weapons. You get to replenish your health through pork chops, through pretty much whipping a brick wall. Usually probably like it's either located behind, like underneath like some the stairs, or just pretty much have to just keep whipping a wall until you get a pork chop, and that's how you replenish your health. And I think that
I love video game logic.
Yeah, and I just think and that's one reason why it's also well, because you have to find it, and if you don't, you're pretty much just you're just pretty much screwed. But you also get to upgrade your whips 3 times and everything. But yeah, and yeah, that's pretty much what I want to talk about the gameplay as well. Anybody want to add anything before we move on to the next game?
You want any chance of beating it? Just don't get hit.
Yeah, don't get hit, and you better make sure you have the holy water on you, because if you don't, oof, you're screwed.
Anything else you want to add, Ken?
Not really.
Alrighty then. So the next game in the series, and might I ask, this is when Nintendo was notorious for pretty much changing up the whole sequels pretty much. So we had the success of Super Mario Brothers, and then there was, Super Mario Brothers 2. I'm talking about the American version, not the Japanese version.
Yeah, American Mario 2, not Lost Levels.
Like the reason why they changed it was because of like it was too hard for like the American market, and I'm like, that's an interesting idea.
To put it as to quote John Ortiz from his review, now why exactly did this game never get localized? Because the game was developed by Satan himself.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. So, even though like we never got the game, I still like the American version of Super Mario Bros. 2, even if it's like skinned. Just a brief thing on that.
But sorry, Ken had to leave. He had to do something. It was a little emergency, but it's anyway, it's fine anyway. But anyway, and then after that, with the success of Legend of Zelda, we had the infamous Zelda 2: Adventures of Link.
Very split game, I may add. Some people love it, some people hate it, and then there's that small little gray line where people are just like, it's okay.
I didn't mind it. I really didn't mind the second game. I actually kind of preferred the second game to the first one. Unpopular opinion, people.
Yeah, it pretty much changed the whole overhead, view of the original game into just a side-scrolling with just some RPG elements and stuff like that. And pretty much, adding in, every time you were in the open world, you encounter like villains, kind of like Final Fantasy style and stuff. And, this was pretty much, the whole infamous, like, let's, we had a lot of success with the first game. Let's go ahead and change up the sequel, pretty much adding in all these other elements. Thus comes Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, released in, excuse me, pull up the tab, you damn thing. It was released in Japan in 1987 for the Nintendo Entertainment System. In North America, we got it in 1988. Pretty much Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest. After story-wise, after Simon defeated Dracula. Dracula, in his last dying breath, he laid a curse on Simon Belmont, and pretty much Simon Belmont, what he has to do is find 6 body parts of Dracula and pretty much dispose of them internally, so that way he doesn't have to meet an early death. So this one adds more, again, an RPG style, and this time hearts actually replenish your health rather than just finding pork chops and stuff like that. This game, despite, the AVGN saying it's the worst game ever, I actually kind of enjoy the game because, it introduces a lot of, like, elements that, are pretty much introduced into other games, say, like, free roaming, pretty much, if you have to go back to get a certain item. You could always go back without, you could always go back, pretty much just if you need that item again.
Well, to be fair, the AVGN says that about every single game he plays.
Yeah, pretty much. But, yeah, and then they also added a new thing called the day and night cycle. And, boy, yeah, this is every single time when that happens, they always read a text like, what a horrible day to have a curse, or a night to have a curse. And then the taxes was so slow to actually transition to the night cycle and stuff. So pretty much what the difference is, the day, you're pretty much safe. You don't get really that much enemies, but when it's nighttime, that's when just everybody just comes out. Get Simon Belmont. Ah! And
the game was
go ahead.
Oh boy.
Go ahead.
Game was Castlevania 2. If you're gonna play the game, I highly recommend you play the version I played with. Recommended from the Video Game Nerd. Play the I don't know what it's called, but there's a version of the game that actually fixes the issues of the original game. It actually tells you where to go and the hints and stuff about the tornadoes. I highly, if you don't want to pull your hair out and just have a good time with it, play the version that Angry Video Game. I think it was like Requiem or something, like Castlevania Requiem. I think it was like a version of the game that fixed everything. I highly recommend you play that version of the game. It fixes a lot of issues with the original one.
But yeah, and then yeah, my experience with playing this game again, I didn't play it until when I discovered that I could pretty much play the NES emulators and stuff, and yeah, I thought the game was okay, I guess. There was just a lot of like, weird stuff pretty much, and I didn't really like how the transition to the day and night was really, really slow, and sometimes I got really confused as to pretty much where to go, what items to get and everything. But I didn't really play this game that much to pretty much say what I think about it, but all I can say is it's the game that introduced us to pretty much one of the famous songs out of all Castlevania. That's of course Bloody Tears. And yeah, I mean, other than that, that's all I'll always remember Castlevania 2 for. But I mean, if you want to give it a try, then go ahead. I totally recommend playing it for just listening to that awesome tune, Bloody Tears and stuff. But yeah, but pretty much, you could also like buy items, using, I think you pretty much equip, I think it was like money bags, I think, in the game. Am I right, Ghostman? Or was it money bags? Yeah.
Money bags.
Yeah, you pretty much get money bags and you buy items pretty much and stuff. And another thing, might I say, once you gather pretty much all 6 of Dracula's body parts, when the ghost of Dracula pops out, let's just say it's one of the easiest final bosses in video game history. All you gotta do is just kind of whip him, and that's pretty much it.
Whip it good.
Whip it good.
Whip it good.
You want to add anything?
I just want to get straight to the third game, honestly. Like, I don't have a lot of good things to say about the second one, so we should...
I said Mr. Game Guy.
Oh, yeah, my bad.
I didn't hear you. The second game, though, aside from... I do have to give it some credit though, and where it does fall under though. I do like the sudden change of genre though, and how they really did try separating it from the first game. It just was again it was just not a clean and smooth transition as well as they probably intended it for it to be. Especially with the biggest issues, of course, just being how random the game could be at times and how the NPCs don't really offer you that helpful of advice.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's where
exactly. That's one thing I forgot to mention. The NPCs, that infamous. What was that one line?
Look into the Death Star.
Yeah, something like that, right? But yeah. But anyway, overall, Castlevania 2. It was loved by some, hated by some, and again, this is when pretty much just Nintendo didn't know what to do with their sequels at the time, just like Super Mario Brothers and The Legend of Zelda, pretty much. So in a way, they kind of learned their lesson, after this, after Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, and everything. But it's a good game for introducing just a really awesome song that you would hear a lot. And, I never get tired of it. So, yeah. But anyway, moving on to the next game. Now, with pretty much, the little backlash that Castlevania 2 has had. So, I think Castlevania thought that it was time to go back to the original style from Castlevania 1. Thus, we introduced to Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse. Now, Castlevania 3 is actually the beginning of Konami screwing up with the Castlevania timeline. So pretty much this game is a prequel. It pretty much takes place before Castlevania 1. Thus, our main character and the more new, which pretty much the new Belmont, well, old Belmont, if you want to go story-wise, Trevor Belmont, pretty much. In the story, pretty much the church has, abandoned, pretty much fired the Belmonts or abandoned, pretty much just what's the word for it? God damn it! Pretty much the church, disbanded the Belmont clan and stuff. From using their, from use of black magic, pretty much, because they thought that they're the reason why all these demons are pretty much coming out and stuff. And pretty much there was this scientist that wants to meet with Dracula. And so pretty much, Dracula meets with the scientist, they end up falling in love. They have a kid together. And the church thought that this scientist was pretty much using black magic, branding her a witch, thus killing her by burning at the stake. Pretty much traditional ways to execute witches back then. And pretty much she told Dracula, please forgive them because they don't know what they're doing and everything. So Dracula's pretty much enraged by this. He summons the armies of hell to pretty much destroy the town of Wallachia. And thus the church once again call upon Trevor Belmont to don the vampire killer to, execute Dracula once and for all. But along the journey, he is also met with other three people. There is Grant, a pirate who once tried going into Dracula's castle to pretty much steal some of his cargo, but thus he was caught by Dracula's army. Thus Dracula turned him pretty much into like a monster hidden within his castle. And then there's Sifa, who is pretty much a part of this group called the Speakers, but she also knows some magic as well. And then they are all also introduced to the son of Dracula, known as Alucard. Get it? Because Alucard is spelled Dracula backwards. I'll stop now. and thus we go, and thus we got Castlevania 3: Dracula's Curse. Pretty much the gameplay is going back to the old style of Castlevania 1 and pretty much ditching Castlevania 2's RPG style, pretty much. Castlevania 3 pretty much introduces to pretty much character swapping. So and you could literally play either from Trevor, Grant, and Sifa, and Alucard, pretty much. So you could anytime, whenever you encounter some of them, and then, you could pretty much switch off anytime you want. And, I actually thought that was pretty cool, because that actually introduces to, like, a lot of, like, video games. Pretty much, video games in the future, it pretty much revolutionized, character selection, is what I'm pretty much saying and stuff. So, yeah. And then it's just, really awesome. So, yeah. And, man. May I say that beginning, like once you start the game and you see Trevor Belmont like right there in the church praying and everything, my God, that's actually an epic scene right there. That's actually pretty cool. And then thus, the music known as Beginning plays, and I'm just like, hell yeah. So yeah. Oh man, so awesome.
Such a cool song too. Are we gonna get to a segment where we talk about the music, because I love the music in the series?
Yeah, we'll definitely get there. But yeah. But my experience with Castlevania 3, again, I did not play this game that much. I don't know why, but I think I played this game briefly for the emulator. But I didn't really get, for some reason, I just never really fully played it. I'm just like, why did I never do that? And I kind of regret it, But I think eventually, once I have the time to buy an NES, I'll definitely get Castlevania 3 and play it fully. But, I mean, I can't really say much about the game since I didn't really play it fully. But, from listening to like reviews and everything, I could say pretty much a lot of people say that this is actually one of the more harder games in the original trilogy. Ghostman, you want to add anything to Castlevania 3?
This game was such a huge improvement over the second game. Can I say that? It's actually holy crap, this is this is a really good game compared to like what the first and second games did. Like it basically revolutionized what Castlevania was going forward at the time. And like, oh man, do I love playing the different characters and stuff in this game. I think it's a really sick game with like probably some of the best Castlevania music I've listened to. Mm-hmm. It's a really freaking good game. And how you fight Dracula was the final boss of this game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, freaking sick ending to the game too. Oh, it's so good. It was, I'm not gonna lie though, it was hard. It was hard.
Mm-hmm. It was hard.
I don't think it's as hard as 1, but it's kind of close to that. But the controls are way better. They're way better than what the first game had by far. Mm-hmm. But I think the game's amazing. It's a really good game for the time. I think it's kind of dated, but it's still a pretty good game in my opinion. It's definitely better than what the first 2 games offered at the time. Holy crap. The different characters too, and Alucard and stuff. It was really interesting to have that, like have Dracula and then Alucard. Just have Alucard, Dracula just spelled backwards. I found that nice. But yeah, all I really gotta say is like, yeah, this game was pretty good.
Yeah.
Also, oh yeah, can we talk about? I don't know if you've seen like the final boss of the game, but so what's really what you wanna go into that, right?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
The really cool thing about like Dracula is like when you face him, you're like, oh, this dude's definitely dead. The thing about this boss is when you show up and to go fight Dracula, you fight him, you get rid of his first form. He turns into a freaking he turns into like a bunch of these skulls and heads into the second form. It's weird. And then the final form, he turns into this big demon bird and stuff, and you have to go on the platforms, and it's like crazy. And it's like, and the music just kicks in and stuff, and it's so freaking epic. Definitely one of the best Castlevania last bosses I played. Like, holy crap, it was nice.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I remember briefly, like, I remember seeing a playthrough of this game and seeing all these different, like, forms of Dracula. I'm just like, whoa, what the heck? Like, how many forms does this guy need to freaking finally beat you? Oh, my gosh. It's really one of the more harder bosses in the Castlevania series, just for the fact that Dracula has these multiple forms and everything. And, you know, it's actually, you literally have to try not to get hit, because it was really hard because you couldn't really have anything to like replenish your health and stuff like that. And also, like,
this is the crazy part about it, because I remember I still got a broken controller from the time I tried to beat the boss. I remember I chucked it so hard because of like, it was so tough. So, okay, anybody who plays the third game, please put a save state on the boss and make sure you have full health, because I'm telling you right now, you die during his 3 forms, you have to restart the whole stage. I kid you not.
Yeah.
It is one of the hardest stages I've ever played. It might even take the cake like over like the hardest stage in any Castlevania game. It's really hard, but it's not like the thing about Castlevania 3 compared to 1 is like, this is your fault. Like seriously, it's like you feel like you're the one at fault for it, not the game's fault. But yeah, I'm telling you, you better know how to. You better keep yourself focused every single time, because if you die, oh, it's not going to be a pleasant journey coming back.
Yeah, don't worry about feeling like your dark side feel, always blaming the game mechanics and everything. It's more of like the game's, I mean, it's more of your fault, you know? You have to be very skilled to play Castlevania 3. You have to know when the right time or what right characters are for what stages and what bosses, pretty much. So you really have to, it's more of like and back in the day, it was more for the more hardcore Castlevania players and stuff. So yeah, I'm just putting it out there. But Mr. Game Guy, do you want to add anything for Castlevania?
Yes, I'm back, by the way. I had a bathroom break, and then I just received a letter about multiple different important life decisions, though. So, but I wish I was kidding about that last part. But anyway, Castlevania 3. All I have to say is Alucard really did age well. He aged very well. Going from that all the way to going from how he looks in this game to Symphony of the Night, he aged very well.
He did, definitely.
But that's all I have to say. I mean, I haven't played the game. I do know that it's incredibly infamous for being very hard. Medusa heads. But,
Oh, you and me both, buddy. You and me both.
But aside from that, I got nothing else, though. So,
yeah. But,
anyway, continue on.
Despite it, being just the hardest game, it did have some success. It even down the line pretty much was the adaptation for the Castlevania Netflix series. We'll get to that later, Ghost Man.
What do you say? What do you say again?
No,
I know which one. We better be talking about the handheld, not the Game Boy handheld games, but I really hope we talk about the GBA ones.
Oh, we'll get to that pretty much, but yeah, and then pretty much after that, the Castlevania games pretty much got a bunch of like spin-offs from the Game Boy games, pretty much. The first one being I think it was only released in Japan, called Akumijo Special Baku Dracula Kun. It is a platformer video game made by Konami. It was released in Japan for the Famicom on October 19th, 1990. Considered a parody of Castlevania series, a version of a mobile game that was also released on back in 2006. But yeah, this was pretty much like a spoof of it, pretty much like a chibi version. You know how you have your puzzle fighter for Street Fighter? Yeah, this was it pretty much. But then after that, in 1991, we got Castlevania 2 Belmont's Revenge, which is a platforming game released for the Game Boy in 1991. It is the second Castlevania title for the Game Boy, and it serves as a sequel to the previous title, Castlevania: The Adventures of Belmont's Revenge. In the GB series. And then after that, with the Nintendo transitioning to the Super Nintendo, there was pretty much, what was Konami going to do with the Castlevanias? And then pretty much December 4th, 1991, during that holiday year, man, we got probably, in my opinion, the best Castlevania game in this series. I'm, of course, talking about Super Castlevania 4.
This isn't just Castlevania 4, it's Super.
It's Super Castlevania 4. Oh, man. But yeah, Super Castlevania 4 released in Japan in October 31st. Pretty much Halloween around that time. North America didn't get it until December 4th, 1991. Castlevania 4 is actually more of like a remake of the first game. It introduces back Simon Belmont pretty much. But man, this game is just literally the best because of one physics, one of the best games, one of the best mechanic in the whole series, and that is, of course, whipping the vampire killer 8 directions. Drum roll, please. 8 directions.
Yeah!
Bada bing, bada boom.
Literally 8 freaking directions. Not only that, though, you could literally flick your whip like you're trying to swat a fly or something.
The whip dangle.
Oh my gosh, dude.
The whip dangly thing.
Go ahead, Ghostman. I know you want to talk about this one.
One of my favorite Castlevanias. Okay, so Super Castlevania 4 is like probably one of the best Castlevania games I've ever played. Holy moly. Dude, like, hey, look, if you ever decide to not finish 1, go straight to 4. 4 is like a remake. You're not missing much if you go to 4. Trust me, you will thank yourself for playing a game with 8 directions. It makes a huge difference to the formula of the game. Dude, like, okay, so basically, the game, okay, I'm not gonna lie though, the game is still pretty hard. I just don't think it's as hard as the first 3 games, but holy crap. That
It's hard,
game,
but fair.
it's fair. But like the fact that we have 8 directions is such a game changer because like that's crazy because like now you can deal with a lot of these enemies and have no problem. Medusa heads. Yeah, so you could deal with those pesky things all the time, dude. And it felt so refined. It felt nice, and I know I talk about this a lot, but the music, it's so good.
The music is good.
And the whip stuff, I kind of want to. Oh, that's so good. Yeah, but the whole game is really freaking good, and I love what they did with the ending of the game, like where they added a new form of Dracula to make it different. Like, Dracula was different than he was in the first game, but wow, it was so epic. Also, you could see the graphical leap it took from like 3 to like Super Castlevania 4, and I still think Super Castlevania 4 looks like a really beautiful game. It still looks it looks pretty.
Yeah.
But trust me, do yourself a favor. If you ever start up with the Castlevania series, do yourself a favor and play 4. It's a great starting point for the series.
It definitely is. Like literally when I tell some of the people that want to play Castlevania, because I sometimes mention it a lot to some people, I tell them always start off with Super Castlevania 4 for the Super Nintendo, because I know the first one is pretty outdated, but you will definitely love the fourth Castlevania, just for the fact that you could whip the whip 8 directions and everything. Might also add that he could also moonwalk.
Yeah, I remember that.
But pretty much it's still the same style Castlevania, pretty much your traditional platformer pretty much and everything. So it pretty much takes the style of it. It pretty much is like a more revamped version of the first one. So introducing just some really great elements, because there's this one level in the game where you're in a tunnel, but the tunnel turns and the background just literally moves, and I'm just like, whoa, like this was a huge thing back then, pretty much, because some of the stages have like 3D transitions, and that's when that turning tunnel is pretty much. I might also add as well that your whip can be a grappling hook as well. There's certain little bats that have like hanging circles that you could pretty much use it as a grappling whip and stuff, and it's just really, really awesome. Stage 2, where you hang on to one of those bats with your whip, and the whole stage moves like from side and then the other side, and you have to time that freaking landing that platform perfectly, or else you'll drop to the spikes and stuff. And oh my gosh, dude, it's just the stages in the game as well. It's just really awesome. But yeah, oh my gosh.
I love the fact that you can. Can we mention the whip effect, please? Like how you look like a total idiot when you use the whip. Oh my god, it's so funny. Like he just like spazzes out and stuff. It's like it's great.
Yeah, but Super Castlevania 4 is oh man,
arguably one of the best Castlevania games. You should do yourself a favor and play the game. Honestly, really, anybody who wants to get into the series, please play this game. You'll enjoy it. It's really good.
It's good. It's still that traditional Castlevania, but it's. You want to add anything?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Well, once again, I haven't played the game, but I will have to say, if it just wasn't for the fact that you can whip in 8 different directions, and the fact that you can do the whip dangly thing, which is just not for cosmetics, it's actually handy from what I've seen. It's actually useful.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, though, that Castlevania 4, though, from the looks of it, though, definitely seems to be the most polished and well-balanced in terms of gameplay out of all the classic games. So overall, it's looking promising, and I'll probably start with that one if I ever start with the series. That
please do yourself just like get an emulator and play the game, dude. I'm telling you, it's definitely worth your time.
Yeah, it definitely is. But yeah,
I'll definitely give it a look.
Yeah. But after Super Castlevania 4, the series pretty much was a little hiatus, but not that very long. But they did spawn some like spin-offs. We got a spin-off called Kid Dracula, and then we got Akumojo Dracula. But in Japan, and only in Japan, I wanted to see, you know, when I could talk about this specific game, because we didn't get this specific game, but it was titled a different title in 1995, pretty much. But I don't know what to do. Should I?
Ernesto, come on.
Okay,
Come on.
fine. So
both games, just do both. Just do both.
Okay, so pretty much we got in Japan, there is a Castlevania game called Castlevania Rondo of Blood. Now, for us, it was called Castlevania Dracula X that was released in the Super Nintendo. Both versions of the games were very, very, very different. So
very similar, but very different.
Yeah, very different, pretty much. We didn't get Rondo of Blood until the PSP version, and recently, well, we'll talk about the other version after the
soon.
We talk about pretty soon. But I know Ghostman's really eager to talk about Rondo of Blood, so I'll just, before we do that, let me talk about the story. So pretty much, again, since, you know, Dracula's back from the grave, we follow another Belmont by the name of Richter Belmont. And pretty much Richter Belmont, might I add, is, you know, probably, you know, one of the more well-known Belmonts, but yeah. But should I say briefly that, you know, for Super Castlevania 4, with the introduction of the 8-whip direction, this one goes back to the linear style. And this was just why. You had something good with 8 whipping directions, and then you go back to just the linear style where you're just whipping one direction. And I thought
you're taking steps back, man.
Yeah, you're literally downgrading. It's like you press upgrade. No, you press downgrade on the enter key, and you're like, fuck, go back. Fuck, go back.
Control Z.
And then, yeah, so it goes back to the linear style, and I'll let Ghostman talk about it.
Okay, so we're gonna go to Dracula X first because I want to say Rondo of Blood for a little bit. Dracula X is actually a really, oh boy, I think it's a good game, but oh boy, do I have a lot to say about it. The music was really good on the freaking Super Nintendo. I know I said the music, but the best soundtrack in Castlevania, easily. Divine Bloodlines was really good. Richter is still one of my favorite Castlevania characters, so yeah. This game introduced a lot of cool enemies and like the story. I just like how the intro just pumps you up right when you're there, and then you like fight this big dog at the beginning, and then you do the platforming. Oh boy, I don't like this part in Dracula X. So the second level, you have to whip a bunch of these fish enemies, and they appear out of nowhere. You get hit, you fall down to the pits. And the thing I don't like about Dracula X is the fact that if you die, you gotta start the level over again. But here's the problem. There's no save data. So the only way... So you better make sure you have like your game still open, because this game doesn't have any save data at all. You can't save your game. The only way to do it is passwords. And I really didn't like this version of Dracula
and well,
X.
that's just something you gotta deal with in old games, is passwords.
Yeah.
No, it's just that the Super Nintendo was limited compared to like the console that Rondo of Blood was on. But here's the thing about it. It is... I can't stress this enough. This is the hardest Castlevania game of all time. It's the hardest. I kid you not. It is the hardest game I've ever played in the Castlevania series. And oh boy, that final boss can go screw off, because I hate the final boss of that game.
Oh my gosh.
It's cheap, it's stupid, and if you fall, you're dead. I hate it.
Yeah.
Just play Maria. You'll win.
No. The thing is, this game is harder than Castlevania 1. It's harder than Castlevania 2. It's harder than any other Castlevania I've ever played.
Yeah, I mean, the final boss is pretty cheap because, like, instead of, like, your traditional Castlevanias where it's just on solid land and everything, just whipping at Dracula, you're literally switching from platform to platform to platform, trying to get Dracula and his freaking, and he's wearing a Speedo, might I add.
Oh my gosh, you have to mention that part.
He literally turns into a bat, wearing a Speedo. And I'm like, Dracula, I got one thing. Where'd you get that Speedo? But yeah,
how'd you get that good looking?
It's pretty cheap. Yeah, you're just literally jumping from platform, and if you get hit by Dracula, you're literally bounced back into the pit, into your doom. And it's really cheap, and I think
have so many categories. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Why did it have to be that hard?
But yeah, and this is literally when I played Dracula X, just like never again. But I actually prefer Rondo of Blood more than Dracula X.
Oh, I need to go into this.
Go ahead.
Okay, so do not play Dracula X. Play Rondo of Blood. Please go straight to Rondo of Blood once the new. Yeah, we'll talk about that later. But I'm talking about. What I'm telling you, Rondo of Blood is one of the best Castlevania games I've ever played. The story, I think the story is the best in the series, and you can play as another character, and also you can easily get to the other side quests, because if you don't know, this game actually has two endings than one. There's a bad ending and there's a good ending. If you want to get the good ending, there's three endings per se. If you rescue only one of the girls, then it's the end. It's like a decent ending, but if you don't save any of them, and then it's a bad ending. But you're supposed to save three girls basically, and can I say that the other character is overpowered as heck, but she's so fun to use. Basically, the reason why people didn't like Dracula X is because Dracula X came out at a different time compared to Rondo of Blood. Rondo of Blood came out 2 years earlier compared to Dracula X, and Super Castlevania 4 came out a year after Rondo of Blood. So I don't mind that people were kind of a little mad that they didn't bring back the old gameplay style, but that's because Rondo of Blood came out before 4. So, but still, the game is amazing. Please play it. It's really good. Especially, oh my gosh, dude. There's so many things I have to say about Rondo, but the final boss is way better. It's more, I should say, it's fair. It's nice. The music's way better. You can hear the music actually better, and I think the game is just way better overall. If you want the best Rondo of Blood experience, please play the game. It's definitely one of the best Castlevania games ever made.
Yeah, it's definitely, yeah, I definitely prefer Rondo of Blood over Dracula X. I just thought Dracula X was pretty cheap, even though I do respect Dracula X for its stages, pretty much the design of it, not the actual stages, because the enemy placement and the freaking platforming is pretty cheap, especially the final boss with Dracula. But I just prefer Rondo of Blood better because it introduces, it actually introduces some dialogue, surprisingly. And it also introduces to just, in the beginning, you actually go face off against Death, and then Death at the end is next time it won't be so easy, and then you're right there in the town pretty much whipping out just pretty much the enemies and stuff, and it's just it's really awesome. I really prefer Rondo of Blood better. So I mean, in order for people to play it, I didn't want to talk about this. There is the PSP version, but for those who don't have a PSP version, I did want to talk about this much later, but there is a
we should save it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's just save it. But we'll talk about that later. But yeah, definitely if you have a chance, if you find it, definitely play Rondo of Blood instead of Dracula X. But I mean, to be fair though, Dracula X did have some good soundtracks. I honestly think, even though, yeah, Rondo Blood was the more superior in terms of soundtrack, but I thought Dracula X had some pretty good remixes of some of the...
Define Bloodlines. Oh,
Define
so
Bloodlines. But yeah. But anyway, pretty much, yeah, Dracula, Rondo Blood came out in 1993, while Dracula X came out in 1995. So in between those, we got another game by the name of Castlevania Bloodlines. Now, this game didn't come out on the Nintendo. This was the first, actually. This game actually came out on the Super Genesis.
Saturn.
Sega
Genesis, right?
Yeah, Sega Genesis.
Yeah, or Genesis. It was Genesis.
Or the Sega Mega Drive if you lived in the other side of the world. Pretty much, are you guys familiar? And plot wise, are you guys familiar? Are you guys familiar with the Bram Stoker novel? Bram Stoker novel of Dracula.
I never read any of the novels, to be honest.
Me neither.
Oh, but I did hear that was a continuation. The game was a continuation of those novels.
Yeah, and have you heard the novel about it or anything?
I've heard of it, but I just know about the game.
Mr. Game Guy?
Oh.
I have not, no.
No? The Bram Stoker novel, Castlevania Bloodlines heavily evolves the Bram Stoker novel of Dracula. Pretty much the one of the characters by the name of Quincy Morris, who in this game actually is a descendant of the Belmont family. So he was entrusted with the vampire killer, after Richter had passed away and stuff. So pretty much it was up to him to pretty much slay Dracula. And thus, his son, John Morris, actually, followed him pretty much to when Quincy fought Dracula. And pretty much he killed Dracula, but he ended up getting stabbed by Dracula in the process. Thus, he died and stuff. So Quincy pretty much entrusted John with the whip, and when it was his time to face off against Dracula, I think he was resurrected or something like that. It was a woman by the name of Elizabeth Bartley, who was the niece of Dracula, who pretty much revived him, pretty much. Thus, kind of breaking the seal of like him being resurrected 100 years and stuff. So it was up to John Morris and his childhood friend by the name of Eric Lacardi, who actually uses a spear instead of a whip and stuff. And might I ask, oh my gosh, the first song in the game is just so great. Oh man. What was the name of the song? I think it was I was listening to this yesterday. I really forgot, but I never heard of this game until I watched the AVGN review. So I really don't know much about it besides gameplay wise and everything. But again, this goes back to the linear style and stuff. So it was like, so pretty much at this point, this is when kind of Konami pretty much ditches the whole whipping in 8 directions, which is sadly really disappointing. But yeah, you want to add anything, Ghostsmith?
Oh boy, this is gonna be interesting. Castlevania Bloodlines. I think it's a good game. Honestly. Okay. I think I played a bit of it. I didn't really play that much, but I have seen playthroughs of it. But I think it looks really good. And from what I've seen, the bosses are really creative. There's this werewolf boss that looks really freaking sick. There's this this boss that you have to fight in the air, like where you have to like throw your things. And I think you fight Medusa. I'm not sure about that.
I think so. I don't remember.
I think you fight Medusa in the game, but the final boss is holy crap. That is an interesting gargoyle boss, I'll say that for sure.
Yeah.
Is it one of my favorites? It's good gameplay-wise. I definitely think it's way better. Is it one of my favorites? Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
It's a really good game, and also it looks the animations for the game on the Sega Genesis. Whoa! I'm not gonna lie, this game actually was pretty good on the Genesis compared to what the NES and Super Nintendo could handle.
Yeah, I wish that Sega had made more Castlevania games. Sadly, this is the only Castlevania for the
Which
Sega
is really
Genesis.
surprising. Which is
Yeah,
really surprising.
yeah, and it was just really shocking too that I thought from time to time they'll definitely have like Sega Genesis version of Super Castlevania 4, but apparently it didn't, and I don't know. It was just it was pretty disappointing. But I mean, Bloodlines itself was a pretty good game, and I love the soundtrack of it and everything. I loved how they pretty much brought in the Bram Stoker novel into it as well. Introducing pretty much. This is pretty much the first game that didn't introduce the Belmonts and more of like a descendant of them, pretty much adding a character of the novel into it, along with him having a son, and pretty much going back to like choosing whatever character you want and stuff. And I thought the game was I can't really say much about Bloodlines since I really never played the game that much. Overall, I thought the game was pretty cool from seeing on playthroughs and stuff. So yeah. Did you want to add anything, Mr. Game Guy?
Nope.
No?
No. All I just gave out was just a cold nope, and that was it.
Oh, alrighty then. But
that was disappointing.
Well, anyway, after that, that's when we actually got Dracula X. Now, I forgot to ask you this. What are your thoughts, Mr. Game Guy, on Rondo of Blood and Dracula X? Because we forgot to tell you.
Well, from the looks of the reviews I see online, though, it definitely seems to be a very, very solid game. And I haven't played it though, so I'm not sure though. But I love the addition though that if you find the game too difficult or you just want to have fun, you can just play as Maria though and just sort of breeze through it though. In my opinion, I think the addition of something like that though would be enough though to have some newcomers maybe check it out. Just so, because if you're not adjusted to the game, if you're not adjusted to the hard difficulty, then just go Maria and you can have a somewhat difficult time though, but a way easier time breathing through.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I gotta say about that.
Yeah, but yeah. Then after that, after Dracula X, 1996, there wasn't really no other Castlevania game. But in 1997, we did get a pretty much this was the age where every video game console was transitioning from the 16-bit era to the 64-bit era. Pretty much the 3D age, a lot of like games like Super Mario, Donkey Kong, and Legend of Zelda transitioned from the 2D to the 3D world pretty much. But in 1997, Castlevania did their last attempt into pretty much the 2D world. Thus, we got what everyone thinks is the best Castlevania of all time is, and that is, of course, Castlevania Symphony of the Night for the PlayStation 1 that was released back in March 20 of 1997. Now, man, where do I begin with this one? I regretted not playing this game when it came out, pretty much. Again, I wasn't never introduced to Castlevania back then. Until I've played we'll talk about the next game later. But when I played it is when pretty much my cousin introduced me to it, and pretty much there was the Xbox 360 version stuff. That's when I played the demo briefly and stuff like that. And when I was watching the AVGN video of his review on it, that's when I decided, because at the time I had the PlayStation 3, and PlayStation 3 was backwards compatible with the PlayStation 1 games, pretty much buy them from the store. So, I grabbed a $20 for PlayStation Network, and I bought myself Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I forgot what other game I bought, by the way, but yeah, oh my gosh, dude. Castlevania Symphony of the Night has to be, like, even though I say Super Castlevania 4 is my favorite in the series, Symphony of the Night is definitely number 2 for me, because Symphony of the Night introduces, like, back in, Castlevania 2, where they introduced the RPG style, they literally brought this back for this game, and it worked to perfection. I definitely praise them for bringing it back and doing this once again, pretty much. But anyway, story-wise, might I ask that this game actually had some pretty, I wouldn't say bad, but okay voice acting. The infamous "Die, monster! I don't belong in this world."
Oh yeah, the infamous line. It's a sequel. It's a sequel to Rondo of Blood too. That's the thing that's interesting about it. It like plays a section from that game at the beginning.
Yeah, pretty much. It was the ending to Rondo of Blood. Pretty much you're facing off against Dracula and everything. Does have its different take on it. Pretty much, after defeating Dracula, man, I gotta say the line. I'm sorry. Die, monster! You don't belong in this world. It was not by my hand that I was once given flesh. I was brought back by humans who wish to pay me tribute. Tribute? You steal men's souls and make them your slaves. Perhaps could be said of all humans. Your words as empty as your soul. Mankind ill needs a savior like you. What is a man? And then he just throws his wine glass. A miserable pile of secrets. But enough talk. Have at you. And that's when the whole fight sequence happens, pretty much. Might I ask, when you do lose your health against Dracula, you do get bring back by a little girl. I forgot her name. She plays
Maria.
a main focus in the game as well. I just forgot her. But she brings you back, and then pretty much you're all right there, turning Super Saiyan, and then pretty much once you defeat Dracula, he brings out his second form, which is kind of like a gargoyle, pretty much. And then after that, you pretty much kill Dracula, but along the way, Richter Belmont is trapped as well. So we literally don't hear from Richter for quite a while in this game. Thus, story-wise, Alucard is awakened from his very, very long slumber, and he literally sensed that there's no more Belmonts to pretty much kill Dracula and stuff. So it's up to him. And might I say that one sequence with Alucard, oh my gosh, he's so overpowered. You literally go through the castle, you face off against these giant wolf monsters. You pretty much kill them in one hit. But once you pretty much reach that, you're pretty much introduced to death. He takes out all your overpowered weapons, and now you're just stuck with a measly weapon, which literally takes out so many hits to actually kill the enemies. But again, I mentioned this is an RPG style game as well, but there's also some elements to another game, and this is another Nintendo game, but this game was released only for PlayStation. This game also introduced elements to Metroid, and I'm pretty sure if anyone's familiar with Metroid, it's a game starring a bounty hunter by the name of Samus Aran, who pretty much dons this, super armor with a cannon, who is capable of pretty much, turning into a ball, shooting rockets, and pretty much upgrading her weapons, along the way and stuff. But in the game, there's these save states that you would go to pretty much save your game. This game introduces that. Not only that, Metroid also has a mapping system, pretty much telling you, where do you have to go next. Symphony of the Night introduces it as well. A lot of people in the internet call this Metroidvania and stuff. And I didn't mind it. I thought the game was still cool and everything. I like how, even if you want to go back to the OP Alucard that was in the beginning, you literally have to grind leveling up and pretty much getting your weapons, pretty much getting good weapons and everything. So yeah. But the game itself is just really great. And, it definitely has some replay value because, might I ask, after you beat the game, you have to now beat the game while the castle's upside down.
Ooh.
Yeah. But there's also, I think 2 endings to it. Actually, no, you could play 2 bosses, actually. One being Dracula, but also, you could also face off against Richter as a final boss as well. That's being possessed by Dracula himself. But at this point, Dracula is being resurrected by this this person by the name of Shaft. I'm not mistaken, not Shaft from that TV show. Who's the man who gets the lady? Shaft. But yeah, I just think that Symphony of Night is literally, introduces to a brand new mechanic, and well, not really brand new mechanic because it does have some Metroid elements, but itself is pretty much a revolutionary thing, and I could guess why everyone thinks that this game is, the best Castlevania game ever. Do you want to add anything, Ghostman?
It changed a lot about the original Castlevania games. You go from a dude carrying a whip to a dude who literally has all this magic. And I love at the beginning of the game, like, you have all of his powers, and then you, like, lose them, and you have to catch, like, every single one of them. Who are very powerful at the beginning of the game, but it gives you a feeling of, oh, crap, this feels nice. I like the style of it. I really do like the style of Castlevania. I think it's like I think this is the first game that started the Metroidvania Castlevania series. Like it started.
Oh yeah. That's what I forgot to mention. Yeah, after Symphony of the Night, later down the line we get a couple spin-offs of Symphony of the Night. Pretty much, same style of it, but only on the 3DS or DS. But yeah, go ahead.
And the Game Boy Advance. I forgot to mention about that.
Oh yeah, that one as well.
Symphony of the Night is definitely one of the best games ever made. It's a very good game, and like I like how it takes place after Rondo of Blood, and you just play as Dracula's son. It's so funny though how Dracula's son has to kill his own father, which is the funniest thing I find.
Well,
it's like
if you think about it, Alucard doesn't approve of Dracula's motives after her mom was killed. Pretty much. And you could kind of guess why he has to do it, because he has to be stopped either way. He doesn't want to do it, but he has in order to stop him. Even though he does, feel like, oh, either way he'll be resurrected another 100 years, pretty much. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's a really good game, though. I don't really have much to say about it, except, like, the level design is really good, and it's definitely longer compared to the other Castlevania games, and of course, the infamous "Die, monster! You don't belong in this world." The voice acting in that game was just... Oh, it's a hard pill to swallow. It's like, give us enthusiasm. Don't sound like you're a freaking emo kid on the freaking playground like, "Die, monster. You don't belong in this world." It's like, ugh. Also, the Dracula was like, "Ugh, you come into my castle." He sounds like he needs to take a freaking crap or something. Like, it's so funny. Yeah. It's like, hurry up. I gotta go take a dookie. I'm like, jeez. It's like, yeah, I still think Symphony of the Night is definitely considered one of the best games of all, Castlevania games of all time, especially for the PS1.
Mm-hmm. But
that's all I really gotta say. Alucard is definitely one of my favorite characters, though.
Yeah. Anything you want to add, Mr. Game Guy?
Nope.
Oh, all right. Anyway,
I don't have anything right now. Sorry.
It's all good, no worries. But yeah.
So this is where a weird point in the Castlevania series comes. So Ernesto.
Yep. Okay. So pretty much after that, we get like another Game Boy version, which is called Castlevania Legends and stuff. But after that, in 1998, they really didn't do it. But in 1999, since I mentioned back that Super Mario, Legend of Zelda, and Donkey Kong transition to the 3D world, especially Sonic the Hedgehog. Konami attempted to do this, thus we got Castlevania for Nintendo 64, or mostly people know it by Castlevania 64. Like I mentioned before, this is actually the first Castlevania game I have ever played. As a kid, I thought it was, a pretty good game and everything. It was definitely pretty hard and stuff. But playing it now, yeah, I can see why a lot of people hated this game pretty much.
Where's that noise coming from?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask too.
My bad. That was me. Continue.
All right, but anyway, Castlevania 64 was released in North America in January 26th of 1999. I didn't play this game until probably I saw like a commercial of it. I think when I was at the time I was watching wrestling, or probably at the time I was just, I don't know, watching something, or I don't know. But yeah, and then it didn't release until Japan until March 11th of 1999. But like I mentioned before, I went to GameStop, and that's when I saw the cover of just like a dude, pretty much in pretty much behind the castle and stuff, and I thought it was actually pretty cool and stuff. So anyway, the plot is that Dracula reawakens in the year of 1852. Now again, we're gonna talk about the timeline thing, much later into the podcast. But this game actually doesn't follow the Belmonts. It actually has two other characters by the name of Carrie and Reinhardt, pretty much. Who Reinhardt actually uses a whip, but I don't know for certain if this is the vampire killer, but I think we could assume that it is. But yeah, this game is just not fun at all. Let me tell you guys something. The worst thing about this game is that it's one of those games if you need to get a certain item in order to progress. If you don't get that item, you're literally stuck there forever. You're like, it's game over right there.
Oh no. Oh yeah. No.
I'm pretty sure if anyone's watched the AVGN video, know what I'm talking about. It's the whole situation with the Mandora and Nitrous segment. And I don't necessarily know, like I forgot pretty much. I'm not going to go back looking at the AVGN video. But pretty much, I think if you get the Nitrous, if even once you just jump or get hit by enemy, you explode, and then game over. I'm like, what the hell? And then if you get the Mandora, you're literally just like stuck. So I think you get the Nitrous first or something. I'm not gonna go into full explanation about it, but if you guys want to in the comments below, pretty much explain the whole thing to me. But I'm not gonna go back and watch the AVGN video. But this game also had really bad cameras. It's one of those games in the Nintendo 64 era where pretty much the camera was the enemy, where it doesn't focus on you at all. And might I say, this game just, even though in the beginning where it has that person playing the violin of Divine Bloodlines, which is actually a pretty cool tune, but after that, there is no soundtrack. It's just pretty much quietness and birds chirping and everything, and it's one of those games that I would not approve of. And luckily later on they say that this game is not in the timeline. So, but I'm just saying this game is just very terrible, and for those who like encounter it, stay away from it. Anything you want to add, Ghostman?
I'm gonna be honest, I never played the game and I never want to because, oh boy, it looks pretty bad.
Yeah. You, Mr. Game Guy?
Yes. I have never talked about this in the past, but I cannot stand it whenever you play a game and you end up doing one action that was not intended or was overlooked, and thus you're basically screwed. You're soft locked and you can't complete the game because you did that. I hate it when games do that.
Mm-hmm.
Why? On a bad game like Cheetah Men 2, it's kind of expected though, but
just let it out, man. Let it out.
Just jump and you explode because that's a good way to add some form of challenge to your game, because apparently making it feel like you're walking on eggshells is a great way to do it in a Castlevania game. I haven't seen the rest of that game, so I have no idea if there's anything else that's redeemable about it, but if it's anything else like that, I'm not sure if I even want to check it out.
No, stay away from it, man. It's not worth it. Stay away from it, man.
I know, man. Just let it out, man. I know it's
Let it out,
such a bad
man.
game. I know, man. Just let it out. Just let it out. Just let it out, man. I know.
What the hell am I doing? Well, God, that was over dramatic. The game
It's a
sucks,
terrible
Ian.
game, dude.
Yeah, but that wasn't the only Castlevania
They made a
game.
sequel too.
Yeah, actually, it's a prequel. Actually, it's called Castlevania: Legacy of Darkness. I never played I never played this game because I was disappointed with the first one. And I didn't think that this game was going to be any good. This game released back in November 30th, 1999, which is like a week before my 9th birthday and stuff. So pretty much the year was set before 1984. The game starts a man beats Cornell in the quest to prevent his adopted sister Ada from being used as a sacrifice to resurrect Dracula. The game opens as Cornell arriving in the village and everything, but I can't really talk about this game since I never played it. Have you guys played it?
Nope, I have not played this. Aside from the original games on emulator, I have not played any of them.
Okay. All right. And you, Ghostman, have you played it?
I have not played any of the 64 games, and nor do I want to, honestly.
Oh, alrighty then. Well, yeah, for those who have played Legacy of Darkness, just give your like brief, moment about it. But none of us have played it, unfortunately. So we'll just go ahead and move on to the next
And Ken
game.
left us, unfortunately.
What
The
happened?
GBA games.
And
correct,
Ken
didn't
left
you?
us, unfortunately.
What was that, Mr. Green Bay? I'm sorry.
Oh no. And Ken left us.
Oh yeah, I know. He told me that he had an emergency, so it's fine.
That makes sense.
I'll talk to you guys later about that, but anyway. After that, after pretty much the unsuccessful transition to the 3D world, pretty much the Castlevania series was kind of halted back.
GBA.
In 2001, we got a game by the name of Castlevania Circle of the Moon, which was released for the Game Boy Advance. That was released in Japan in March 21st, 2001. We didn't get it until June 11th of 2001. You want to say anything about it, Ghostman?
Wait, Circle of the Moon. I've never heard of this game. Oh shoot. Oh, hold on.
Oh, you don't? You never heard of it?
Circle. Let me see. I might remember. I just don't like the name. The name seems familiar.
Right. But yeah, it pretty much brings in the 2D side-scrolling style of the originals into the Game Boy version and stuff. So pretty much the plot is taking place in 1830. Again, we'll talk about the timeline in a much later time.
Oh my.
Circle of Moon is set in the fictional universe of the Castlevania series. So this pretty much is not canon with the whole story, pretty much. The premise of the original series is eternal conflict between the vampire hunters of the Belmont clan and an immortal vampire, of course. Who else? Dracula. Circle of the Moon's protagonist, however, is Nathan Graves, whose parents died a decade ago to banish Dracula. Morris Baldwin and helped Dracula's banishment, trained them to defeat Dracula and the monsters. Morris ultimately chose him as a successor of and gave him the Hunter Whip, the vampire hunter, pretty much. Vampire killer, I mean, to the disposure of Hugh Morris, son of who trained alongside him. So yeah, I mean, I can't really say anything about this game since I never played it. I thought Ghostman had played it since he keeps mentioning the Game Boy Advance.
I could easily play it on emulator. It looks like a fun game to play, but I've only played the other two that we're gonna mention soon. But It looks like a game I might actually get into. I did not know there was a third Castlevania game. I always thought there was only two, but hey, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. Moving on to the next game. Anyway, after that, Konami in 2001 released for the PlayStation another version. This one actually is probably one of the more the WTF Castlevania games. This game is none other than Castlevania Chronicles. It's more of like a it's more of like a remake of the first 4 games and stuff, pretty much going back to Simon Belmont, but a more revamped version of Simon Belmont. Instead of, his blonde hair, they gave him a red hair, and he's pretty much dressed like a, I don't know what the hell they put on Simon Belmont at this point. But, yeah, oh my god, this game. Oh man, let me just say real quick, this game, it just, oh my god, where do I begin? Okay, so I didn't play this game until I soundtrack, and let me tell you right now, this game has actually the best version of Bloody Tears you would ever hear, until that's, of course, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate's going to come out and stuff. But other than that, the gameplay is, it goes back to the more old style Castlevanias and stuff. And, oh man, where do I begin? The enemy placements are just, I don't know what they were trying to go with. It was just really, really weird.
Take your time, man.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm just really trying to think this game, because it's been a while. It's been a while. It made questionable moments, and I felt that this game was very downright unfair. And it's so disappointing. Let's just. I thought.
Yep.
I thought. It kicked my ass so many times. It's harder than just any other Mega Man could ever, pretty much do to you. And I just feel like there's moments that it's pretty questionable to stage design that honestly just kind of piss me off. One of which are those damn gears in the clock tower. And often put in situation where it's in the middle of an enemy ambush. And my gosh, dude. The checkpoints from bosses are way too far. Let me add that as well. With healing usually placed too far off. So pretty much items are just placed they just pretty much placed it just anywhere. And it was just pretty much difficult to try to get and stuff. But I just thought this game wasn't, it's not the best Castlevania game. It's not the worst neither, but it's just a very questionable game that I thought, why did they have to make this game? But to be fair, the soundtrack was pretty nice, and I actually do like the soundtrack for this game and stuff. But it's one of those games that I've never bothered touching it because I just thought the replay value wasn't there. Anything you want to add, Ghostman, to Castle Chronicles?
Disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't like it.
Oh. That's all you wanted to add?
Yeah, there's not really much.
Alrighty then. Anything you want to add, game guy?
I have not heard about this game, so I don't even think I've seen any footage of it though. So, no opinion. Though I'm not hearing anything good on it though. So, maybe keep my expectations low.
Yeah, but anyway, after that, in 2002, Konami released another version for Castlevania for the Game Boy Advance, thus beginning with Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance, that was released in Japan of June of 2002. We didn't get it until September 16th of 2000. Anything you want to add, Ghostman?
What are you talking about? The
Harmony of Dissonance.
What game? What game did this? What system did this come out on?
Game Boy Advance.
Oh yeah, this game was. Oh boy. It was a good starting point for the Castlevania GBA games as, well, I haven't played The Curse of the Moon yet, so it's a decent game. I don't think it's anything to blow over the park with. It has a few issues, like, for some reason the switching weapon system is really weird. Like, it's not really well done, and I feel like the game's kind of half-baked compared to the other Castlevania games, but yeah. I don't really have much to say about the game.
Yeah, but story-wise, the Harmony is on in 1748, 50 years after Simon Belmont ended Dracula's curse, which was pretty much the second game. As a result of his battle with Dracula, was the village changed their opinion of him and the Belmont family. Pretty much, Koji Igarashi explained that Simon was regarded as a lifesaver, and people started to look up into him as a hero. Little by little, the people started to gather around a village, therefore was formed around Belmonts. Justy Belmont grew up in this environment with his childhood friend Maxim and Liddy, and the protagonist and the primary character is named Justy Belmont, the grandson of Simon Belmont and the descendant of Sifra Belnis, which is one of the characters you could pick in Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse, who at the age of 16 gained the Vampire Killer Whip. Together in his adolescence and injured best friend Maxim, he sets to rescue his kidnapped childhood friend Liddy, and while exploring the castle, he encounters a merchant who stumbles upon the castle and death, and which is Dracula, which pretty much encountering death pretty much. So yeah. Again, I can't really say much about this game since I the Game Boy Advance version of Castlevania. But after that, we were talking about Harmony of Dissonance, right? And then in 2003, we got another Game Boy Advance game, which is called Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, released back in May 6, 2003 in North America. Japan got it in May 8th of 2003. Pretty much the story goes that the pretty much Aria of Sorrow takes place fictional series. Again, this game didn't happen in the canon timeline. The series premise is the conflict between the vampire hunters of Belmont's clan and the immortal vampire Dracula. 36 years before the start of Aria of Sorrow, Dracula was defeated once and for all by the Belmont clan, and its power sealed into a solar eclipse. Shortly after Dracula's death, a prophecy was made that Dracula's reincarnation would come to his castle in 2035 and inherit all of Dracula's powers. The prophecy acts as the driven force behind the plot of Aria of Sorrow, is the primary motivation for the character to be present. The game takes place in Dracula's castle, the common setting in the series. By this time, everyone knows that, Dracula's castle, so we gotta stop Dracula. The protagonist and primary playable character of Aria of Sorrow is Soma Cruz, a transfer student studying in Japan.
Well, yeah. Are we talking about Aria of Sorrow?
Yeah, we are. A transfer student studying in Japan possesses the power of dominance, which allows him to absorb the soul of monsters and their ability. He is initially accompanied by his childhood friend Mina Hakuba and the daughter of the priest of the Hakuba Shrine. Over the course of the game, Soma meets additional characters and aid him in his quest. There's Genya, an enigmatic government agent and disguise for Alucard, son of Dracula. Yoko Belnatis, witch and member of the Belnatis clan. Jay, an amnestic man drawn to Dracula's castle, and Hammer, a soldier of the United States Army ordered to investigate the events occurring to Dracula's castle. So again, this is another game I've never played, but I'm pretty sure Ghostman has. Ghostman?
Oh, yeah, what's up?
Aria of Sorrow.
Okay, one of the best Castlevania games I've ever played. It's definitely in my top 3 favorites. I've actually been playing it recently, and I love the game. I think it's really freaking good. kind of weird though, because I actually like it a little bit more than Symphony of the Night. I know it's going to sound kind of shocking to people, but I actually think Area of Sorrow is undoubtedly not only one of the best Castlevania games, but probably the best Game Boy Advance game I've ever played. It's the bosses are creative. They did a lot of new stuff with it. They finally fixed the item switching, which is holy crap, it's great. It fixed a lot of the issues with what Resonance had, and it's probably one of the best Castlevania games I think was ever created on the Game Boy Advance, and I definitely think should get a re-release.
Yeah, I mean,
have you played it, Ernesto?
I mean, I have, like I mentioned, I never played the Castlevania Game Boy, but from hearing from other people saying that it's really good, I should definitely give it a try at some point.
Do a playthrough of it, because you could easily do it on emulator. Game Boy emulators are not that hard to emulate, but trust me, play it.
I'll definitely will. Anything you want to add, Mr. Game Guy?
Actually, no, stream it. Streaming would be pretty cool for it.
Yeah. Game Guy? Game Guy?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm dozing off by this point.
Oh, shoots.
Like, I got nothing to say, though, but no, I got nothing to say. Sorry, I'm just waiting for you guys.
All right.
You should give it a try, Game Guy. I think it's definitely one of those games that you should definitely play. Area of Sorrow is definitely a great game. It's considered, in a lot of, like, the best Game Boy games of all time, people put it in their top 10s as, like, the best, like, one of the best Game Boy Advance games ever made.
Oh, really?
Oh, okay.
I'll have to give it a look.
Check it out. Yeah. Game Guy, just a heads up, do you want to break this into parts or something?
Well, admittedly, I wanted to get this done in one day. Yeah, it's probably better if we break this up.
Alrighty then. We'll go ahead and continue it some other time, but yeah. But hold on. But yeah. I think I want to talk about, before we do that, I want to talk about this game specifically, because I was actually waiting for this game. But anyway, after that, in 2004, well, this is actually released in 2003 in North America, pretty much Konami wanted to do the whole 3D Castlevania thing another chance. And thus we got Castlevania Laminate of Innocence. Now, again, I was going to say we're not going to talk about the timeline until much later in this podcast, but Laminate of Innocence actually takes place in the beginning of the Castlevania series.
Oh.
So, yeah. It's I was a very thing. Again, this is when literally the whole timeline was just kind of like screwing up pretty much. This set in 1904, which focused the origins of the series pretty much. And it focuses pretty much the first Belmont ever, known as Leon Belmont, who pretty much searches, Dracula's castle and search for his kidnapped, pretty much friend, pretty much. And I actually think that this is more of one of the more underrated Castlevania games in the series, because I thought this game was actually pretty good. Despite everyone not liking, pretty much the 3D renditions of Castlevania, I actually thought this game was really good. I thought, pretty much gameplay wise, the objective of Lamison is to lead a primary character, Leon Belmont, of course. For his primary whip, pretty much instead of calling the vampire killer, the whip is actually called Whip of Alchemy, given by him by a non-player character, the shoekeeper named Ronaldo. Later on, Leon can acquire 3 more whips, each guarded by an elemental boss, ice, lightning, and fire elemental whips. Near the end of the game, his Whip of Alchemy turns into the more destructive vampire killer. So we pretty much get our origin of, the development of vampire killer pretty much. So yeah, and again, this is a 3D rendition game, and I thought this game deserves a lot more love than what the other Castlevania game got pretty much. So yeah, this game was pretty much received pretty well, pretty much giving like pretty good reviews and stuff. And again, it needs more love, and I definitely am looking forward to when PlayStation 4 releases this again. Because PlayStation 4 does have the option to buy PlayStation 2 games, and I'm just waiting for the time where they bring back this game. So yeah. Anything you want to add, Ghostman?
I've heard it looks really good. I really want to play it, but I've never played the game. Surprisingly, like.
No, okay.
It looks interesting, but I've heard the soundtrack is pretty killer.
Oh yeah, the soundtrack is actually pretty good. So, well, since Mr. Game Guy actually never played this game, I guess we'll end the first part of the Castlevania history. Next up, we'll be talking more about the Game Boy Advance games and pretty much the 3DS games, and pretty much the well, the the reboot supposedly, but yeah, and the supposed fighting game that came out for the Wii. But anyway, and pretty much the future of the franchise, and pretty much the more recent news that pretty much an attempt to bring back the franchise. But anyway, this has been Mr. Espinoza X.
And Mr. Game Guy Color.
This is Ghostman.
And we will see you guys in the next part. All right, everyone. Bye.
Take care.
Bye.